Hello everyone, thank you for joining us at the Economic Times Real Estate Conclave 2022. In the second panel of the day, we will discuss about how PropTech is transforming Indian real estate. Pandemic has shown us how much reliant we are on technology in different aspects of life, and real estate sector is no different. Whether it is builders, government authorities, brokers, architects, all have embraced use of different technology in their day-to-day work. To discuss how the use of technology has impacted the real estate sector as a whole, we have with us Mr. Sachin Bhandari, CEO, VTP Realty, Mr. Rohit Gera, MD, Gera Developments, Mr. Arvind Subramanian, MD and CEO, Mahindra Lifespace Developers, Mr. Vikram Kotnis, Executive Chairman and MD, BeyondWalls. Thank you everyone for joining us. So I will start with Arvind. Arvind, so 2022, 2020 onwards, there has been a significant change in how the builders or all other stakeholders do their business, and how they became more reliant on technology, whether it is in construction or whether it is in any of the aspects of building is concerned. So what kind of changes you have seen, because you have been here for a long time, Mahindra has been here for a long time. What kind of significant changes you have seen post 2020, and what is your expectation going forward?
Yeah, hi. So what I'd like to do is start by finding a way to actually frame what PropTech is all about, because we use it as a very broad and encompassing term, but it actually comprises many different slivers. There is what one can call consumer-facing PropTech. So let's call it consumer tech for the time being. There is the construction tech, and there is the home tech, which is technology enabled in the home, if you're talking about residential real estate for the time being. And each of these is actually very vibrant, and several players are starting to address different problems in each of these segments. So from a consumer tech perspective, it is about how do you reach out to customers? How do you distribute your product better? How do you get better visualization of your product? Your marketing support, sales tools, all of those kinds of things. And we've seen a surge in. This has been a category that for many years has been what I would call highly digitally influenced. And what I mean by that is a lot of the search happens online, but the fulfillment was still happening offline. What the pandemic has taught us is that the fulfillment can also happen online. And we have ourselves gone through several experiments of what we call zero-touch launches. In fact, working with Vikram and his team who have enabled this, where the entire process, the customer has never come face-to-face with our salesperson, including registration of the agreement has been done digitally. So the entire piece has been stitched together. And that is opening new doors to new customers who are out of station, NRI customers. We've had customers who are in the merchant navy who have been doing bookings from ships. So it's fascinating. On the construction tech piece, again, a lot of interesting work happening around using IoT, using robotics, using, again, tools like BIM, to better design and visualize your product and make sure clash detection happens early, things like that, which drive productivity, quality, as well as cost. And finally, the last piece of it was home tech, where again, we are seeing a lot of consumer demand for smarter homes. And the spectrum of offerings on smarter homes could be from convenience and things like multicolored lights, get my curtains motorized, things like that, to very functional aspects like, can you enhance security within the perimeter of my building and in my apartment? And we are seeing a proliferation of startups addressing all these three areas.
Sachin and Vikram, same thing. Would you like to share how you have seen the things?
Thank you. Thank you for having me out there in this STEM panel, and just to see how PropTech has been changing us, particularly after 2020. So while PropTech has started changing the industry much before 2020, it was just that the acceptance of PropTech started increasing at a much rapid pace after 2020 Corona. Otherwise, it had started much earlier. If you remember the OB surface, the presentation and the visualization tools, those were offered by a Bangalore-based company, which was later acquired by the PropTiger. Okay, so that was also a PropTech for us. So for better presentation of the product, better visualization of the product for the customers, particularly for those customers, the way Arvind has said, if the customer is not in the city where you are having the project, So it made our life easy to reach out to the target segments without sending our team. So like even we were working with the Vikram and team. So we have used all those tools from the lead generation to handling those pre-sales, as well as presenting the product, sitting here in the Pune city and the customer is in Dubai or US or somewhere else. And we have been also able to take the bookings also online. So yes, life had changed. We at VTP were always pioneer in adopting the technology. So Vikram is here. He will be the one, I'm one of the first clients of his always. Okay, so that's how it is. So we always adopt the technology faster, which helped us not only to survive in this Corona period, lockdown period, but also we did very, very well. But after 2020, you can say it's become a must kind of a situation. So practically every developer, irrespective of the category, size, scale, and presence, practically everybody is gone for the PropTech. And today it's not a novelty. Earlier it's to some extent was a novelty. Today it is not a novelty. It's a must. It's a necessity, and you can't run the business without it. At least if you want to be there ahead in the chain of the competition. So yes, life has changed. It's become a must and necessity. And I'm sure Vikram and there are many others who are offering fantastic PropTech tools for us to increase our efficiency, increase our productivity, and yes, it's making our business scalable.
So thanks for having me. So worked in the US, seeing the whole transition of technology, right? And what is happening fundamentally is data is getting cheaper every day. Communication speeds are increasing and computing power is increasing every day, right? So what that allows us to do is create a lot of consumer data, create more transparent transactions, collaboration, enablement at real time almost. And the trend is almost, if you know Moore's law and Wright's law and all these, it's going to get accelerated every year, right? So we are in a very exciting phase. Like Arvind said, there is consumer facing technology, consumer journey where there is data science that is coming in. People are able to track IGR real time now. What is the real price? We are doing something very exciting with visualization and all these things with the portraits and on the back end, connecting the whole consumer journey and collaboration with developers, brokers, aggregation. So an ecosystem has been created. Construction tech, a lot of exciting things, BIM, ERPs, data science applied to that, rate analysis. What is the rate impact on the project? How much the price should be increased? So we are working on ERPs also now, and to make sure that the construction finances at least and business intelligence should be sorted out. There is 3D printing technology, modular technologies coming in, which is helping reduce the cost. Obviously, the biggest impact that I see is on finance actually. With blockchain and other technologies coming in, I think finance is a bastion which hasn't been broken down till date. And that is going to be with, so we are launching something on blockchain in a couple of months with our parent company and all this. So that needs to be broken down, the compound interest, right? You buy a house at, let's say 50 lakhs and you end up paying interest of another 30 lakhs on that over a period of time. And the laws are completely stacked against you. So what blockchain and other things are going to do is to allow you to kind of break down that financing into people will be able to finance other people for their home, or they will buy and sell at the position at a profit and all these things. So that is a major change I'll see. This year is probably going to be about the theme consumer journey and finance being broken down as a bastion. That is where I see it going this year.
You're absolutely right. There has been an acceleration in terms of the use of technology. And clearly, once everybody was stuck in their homes, then everybody had to adapt and adopt technologies on a very rapid basis to be able to get any form of productivity done. So even those companies who had very little, very basic levels of tech adoption were forced to accelerate and go up the curve really fast. So to that extent, I think the COVID period has been a huge accelerator when it comes to adoption of technology. Now, Real estate has, you're absolutely right again, that real estate has been very slow in terms of adopting technology. And there's been a multitude of reasons for that. Now, if you think about technology, there's a multitude of different types of technologies available, right? There's technology available for customer acquisition, which is all the online, social media, and all of that. Then there's CRM technology, which is separate. There's your entire enterprise systems and technologies, which are your SAP and things of that sort. Then there is project management. There's design software, which is different. So the kind of technologies that are available, there's so many of them that people, different developers, even those who are pro technology, each one has adopted technology in their own sort of way, right? The other aspect, in the early days when ERPs first came about, real estate has not been a typical standardized kind of manufacturing business, right? So even whether it's SAPs or any of these kind of large scale ERPs which were available, I mean, we adopted Microsoft a long time ago, but the amount of customization and the cost of customization that we went through was tremendous. So getting and picking up softwares which are available off the shelf, ready to run, have been very difficult to get historically. Today, that's changing and changing dramatically. Today, developers are able to see the opportunities and benefits of different types of technology. So whether we're currently using, so for example, we use drone technology to monitor what's happening on the construction site, right? Today, the drone technology actually allows us to calculate the volume of excavation that has been done on the construction. Right? We look at the external construction quality using the drone footage. Now, that's just one aspect. You can use robotic process automation to do all kinds of. So today, our bank reconciliations, which used to require one person 24/7 sitting and reconciling every single bank account, today that is all automated. You can use our customer-facing app, which is called Gera World. People can look at their receipts online. Real time, right? So we looked at solving this problem, right? If you order something on a Swiggy or a Zomato, you spend 200 rupees, you get an instant notification that you spent 200 rupees. You give a developer a check of 7 lakhs or 10 lakhs or 20 lakhs, it takes 7 days to get a receipt, right? So we worked with the banks and used their online payment solution, creating the virtual accounts, figured out the RERA issues with that. And today, if you make us a payment through the virtual route, right, to us, the information to the customer through Gera World is instant. So, the technologies, there's so many different types of technologies available out there. Design, whole different area. Project management, whole different area. So today, I think developers are adopting this much faster. And as we look forward, certainly looking at what's happened in the last few years, right? Accelerated through COVID. There's been a shakedown and a large number of developers have gotten eliminated from the marketplace. Then you've got a lot, but the demand hasn't come down. So basically what we're seeing is the reputed large-scale developers are getting bigger. There are pressures on delivery. RERA has put in penalties for delivery. So our ability to manage our projects, to manage the throughput, to manage large number of customers, it's only possible through deployment of technology across the organization. So I think as the industry has been maturing, right? As the industry has been maturing, as we've seen that there is a tremendous need for throughput, there is a tremendous need for better customer service. We've also seen that customers are much more willing to adopt our technologies, right? Even though we introduced Gera World, which is our customer-facing app a long time ago, it took the longest time for them to raise their queries, raise their issues on the app. People were so used to picking up the phone and calling and sending emails, right? That now we are seeing a shift from consumers to move into using technology. So I think it's a time and a place in the journey of an industry. And today I think we are at that inflection point. And that inflection point, like we started, has been sort of accelerated because of COVID. So today, I think we are in a phenomenal place where technology for property is just exploding.
Arvind, so not just this, so even labors, construction labors that we have, the vendors that we deal with, whether it is for cement, sand, or etc., it is a difficult task for builder to take, have a regular update of this, what is it is happening in a project in far off cities, because builders are present in different cities as well. So do you think there's any kind of technology that can come up, or are these technologies that are helping builders to take care of these labors, not just labors, vendors, etc. also?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's not just about monitoring projects in far off cities. Even monitoring projects that are right under your nose is a huge challenge, right? In a construction environment, there are so many work fronts open simultaneously over a distributed space, unlike a manufacturing setup where it's largely contained and it's very easy to supervise or relatively easy, I shouldn't say very easy, relatively easy to supervise the work, make sure it's happening as per standard processes, techniques, tools, methods, etc. In construction, that is a huge challenge. You have one gang of people working on terrace slab of one building, you have another gang working on tiling of the second building, etc. So we are actually working with some tools that allow us to orchestrate our vendors. And this is kind of what I would call a project lifecycle management tool. It sits on top of our embedded systems like our ERP and our Microsoft projects or Primavera and our document management system. It pulls information from that, it publishes it to the various stakeholders, whether it's contractors, consultants, or the developer. And it allows us to have a real-time view, collaborate online, and troubleshoot online as and when things happen. So it allows us to track productivity of various gangs, the work that gets done. So automatically, very laborious processes like bill certification at the end of the month now get generated off the system, because whatever work has been input by the contractor in the system is what generates the bill for him. He simply has to then sign the bill. There is no acceptance required, because that same work that has been monitored every day has already been accepted by the project engineer or the billing engineer. So I think there's a lot of, I think Rohit was referring to this earlier, driving internal organizational effectiveness, productivity, making sure our teams are spending time on activities that add value as opposed to administrative activities is another big area of value unlock for us.
Okay, so that's a very vast question, and I'll try and answer it very quickly. Consumers, we have seen, like in our own case with our Gera World app, they started using it reluctantly first. Now that when we introduce them, when they're coming to buy the property from us and we give them the demo and the training and all of that, then the adoption rates are much greater. They like it. They have access to documents on the fly. They can download their, agreements. They can download the index 2 copies. They can download, virtually everything is at the fingertips. So that's convenience, and people love that, right? On the consumer side, as developers, we use the technology to view progress. Like I said, we have drone shoots. My monthly reviews are done, using the drone footage. From an overall progress point of view, we use the drone footage for construction quality. So we look at that. In fact, every time the drone shoot gets done, my site safety team looks at the footage of that to make sure that we zoom in into the images to see that the people on the top who are visible at the edges of the building and at the top are all wearing their safety equipment, right? So it can be used like that. Cement and steel guys are, they're using it for their back-end purposes. There isn't too much integration between us and them, right? And people like the elevator manufacturers, of course, elevator is, it's a mechanical device, so there's tremendous amount of technology there. Just as there is tremendous amount of technology that we use in our home automation systems. So when we give a home which is, Wi-Fi enabled, where you can turn on, turn off your lights, track your electricity consumption using our partners, which is Home One Technologies, using their systems, right? Then that technology is a whole different level of technology adoption at the consumer end, and gives a very different level of enjoyment to the customer at that level. There's technology in elevators, for example, whether you have synchronized elevators, that, morning time, the elevators are mostly positioned up, but evening times they're all down because people come from down and move up. So, whether you do synchronization of elevators, this technology is being deployed by those vendors where there is an element of use of technology in the products that they sell to us.
Right. So, Sachin, see, what I was asking was home buyers' preference is something that builders really want to know, and it differs from cities to cities. It differs from a lot of aspects. Now, this is something that technologies, AI, machine learning, etc., are coming up, and they have been there for a long time. But they are now actually data collection and data predictions are being held, and this is helping builders. How are you taking this, in your project, and how do you see this helping you, which was not the case before? So, what is the difference?
See, if I look at it, are we there in terms of having all the data availability? I will say no, we are not there. Okay. Are we better off compared to earlier years? Yes, we are surely better off. Okay. So what I will say is this space is still under development. Okay. So this is not completely there. So as a developer, as a manufacturer, we need several inputs. Now, these inputs has to be correct for us to take right decision in terms of product designing, configuration selection, and pricing preferences and everything. Okay. Now, there are a lot of PropTechs who have already got into it. This kind of data has started being made available in the market. They are being published. But I got my own doubts, or rather, I will say they are not 100% correct. Some data are 60% correct, some data are 75% correct. I have not seen any data till now which is more than 75 to 80% correct till now. So that is where. But yes, we are better off compared to earlier years in terms of the availability of the data, which is helping us to take a decision. But at the same time, are we there? We are not there. A lot needs to be done in terms of the setting of the processes to collect the data correctly. And that is very crucial because our projects are generally highly capital intensive. Now, if you end up taking a wrong decision, we design the project, we launch, we declare it in RERA, there is no way back for a developer. From that point of view, it's highly risky business. So we as a developer are always under pressure, okay, and we'll always prefer to have a correct data. I'm sure everybody who is sitting here and everybody out there, a developer in the country, will love it. But yes, are we there? We are not there. We are still required to use our own judgments and ground level data from our own side. A lot needs to be done, I believe, to understand the home buyer preferences.
Let me add to what Sachin just said. One of the things we've found very helpful over the last few years is using this data to take dynamic pricing decisions. And again, working with a platform that Vikram has put together, Vikram and his team have put together for us, we're able to, even during a high velocity launch, start analyzing in real time what type of typology is in more demand, what type of typology is moving a bit slower, and adjust prices dynamically to situations where in a particular project that we launched, we've had almost a 10% spread of prices for the same in the same project, depending on typology and depending on specific units there, which was unheard of earlier because the paradigm of pricing in real estate was always rupees per square foot into area. Rupees per square foot was driven by location. And there was very little spread around that. Yes, we had some preferential location charges and things like that, floor rise, but that was honestly just a small play. But now we have a much larger play, and that is helping us manage our economics far better.
Yeah, so I think data is getting up. There's still a little bit of challenge when it comes to collecting data from the government, actually, from IGR portals. That's the roadblock which is preventing us from connecting all the dots, right? Because today we scrape, let's say a BMC or a PMC portal. So I can pretty much tell you what inventory is getting launched in the market. With RERA tells me what is already available, how much is sold inventory everywhere. But what is the pricing movement and the actual price that's been sold at? That's the IGR portal, which everybody is doing manually right now. But eventually some solution will come around and hopefully the government will open the APIs at some point. And it's okay to charge for it. Right now we are also manually scraping it and putting together the data. So from that standpoint, pretty much you can very much know what inventory is moving, what is not. Also, what typically I have seen is this is more important for a non-brand because a VTP or a Mahindra, which are brands, consumers have a very high affinity towards them. So they are willing to pay a little bit of premium. So brands can afford to go wrong a little bit But if you are not a brand, then you are completely dead if you don't get the data right. So, for example, West Pune, there are going to be 3,000 units launched in the 50 lakh range, right? 2 bedrooms. And if you go in and launch another 2 bedroom at a 50 lakh, not being a brand, your financial cycles are going to kill you. So those kind of things have to be, so we are doing a lot of things there we already have a data science team, which is doing all this, and we'll release a platform in another 2 months for developers and consumers both to go online and actually get insights. Secondly is we run consumer surveys every month now, which is called user surveys to understand consumer psychology, because suddenly the 4 BHK demand has gone up. There is a niche buyer, they are willing to spend 3 crore, 4 crore in Pune or even 10 crore in Bombay because the liquidity is very high in market, right? And there's been no supply on 4 BHKs for a very long time. So predicting the future is not possible, only if you run surveys or if you run a portal. And the problem is also portal don't have inventory, then you won't know the trend, right? So getting out there and doing actual consumer surveys and running digital campaigns allows you to actually get demand today and understand what's going on in the market. So a lot going on there, and we are very invested in that area, and we'll be doing a lot of things on those lines.
So because what happened with 2020 onwards was people went to work from home, and this meant that they went to smaller cities. They went back to home. They went to smaller cities, tier 2, tier 3 cities. This also meant that there was again a demand in these cities, and builders and everybody also realized that these smaller cities also can be looked at. And in general, also builders look beyond tier 1 cities to smaller cities, and this is where they don't know actually if you're venturing into a new horizon, venturing into a new city, you don't know what the preference is, you don't know which price should be there, which area should be there. Do you think surveying these new areas, going into these new cities and taking into tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities, this is where somewhere the technology can help you in any case, or do you think that this can only be done through market analysis? Any of you can start.
No, I certainly think it's a combination of both. Like Vikram was describing, if there is a data-backed analytical kind of starting view on prioritizing certain markets, understanding the trends there, what are the typologies that move, what are the price points, what are the profile of customers, what are the demographics, all of that can be got from analyzing existing databases. One will always supplement that with on-ground research, but then your on-ground research can build off much stronger hypotheses. You can test them and can be much sharper than you would. You're not trying to size the market. You're then trying to find product propositions, test them, and all of that. So both have a role. The more you have the data backing and the analytical backing, the sharper you can make your consumer research.
As per my understanding, why I said earlier, I think still there are a lot of issues in terms of data availability. So yes, the way Arvind said, it has to be backed by the on-ground, your own research. Okay, but yes, a lot needs to be done. As a developer, I'm sure now so many developers are entering into different cities now, unlike earlier years. So we need those kind of data readily available for all of us to analyze and take the right decision on the right time. So yes, that is not very much possible today. So yes, we are required to do a lot of ground level activities to take those understanding of those particular micro markets. So yes, a lot needs to be done, I think, in the coming years.
So there are 2 types of data, right? One is consumer data, and for a project to be or a developer to be successful, equally rate analysis, labor situation in different cities and all these. That is where a massive gap is, and rate availability, BOQ on that. So basically, when especially a developer is entering a new city, it's like a complete blank slate for them, right? Because no cost, and India is a very dynamic country like that. So there are a lot of unknowns. So primarily, I think there is obviously other developers who you can reach out to and all these, but there is no proper amalgamation of vendors also, or labor companies and all these, which will allow you to take an accurate decision saying, okay, this is going to be my cost, this is what the consumer wants, and this is how much I'm going to make, right? So real estate, I think, is a very tricky business to get into. So every day you have to track, one is the consumer trend, second is obviously my rate analysis, how things are impacting my construction cost. Especially today, the war is on. How is it going to impact my project, right? With the inflation, should I sell faster? Should I slow down? So you need systems to kind of input data and tell you if the steel goes up by this much, am I still viable, or do I need to sell the rest of the inventory at a higher price? Is the consumer going to accept the pricing? So data will allow you to take the right decisions, but you don't only need the consumer data, but you need complete backend data also on how the commodities are moving and other things are moving too.
Look, I think eventually to get into any new market, most important thing is there has to be a depth of market for a player to actually go there to develop the product, to develop a product, right? Larger developers need larger projects, and therefore small markets make it difficult for larger developers to go in. So smaller markets then by nature have smaller developers, and smaller developers, because of the nature of the business, cannot afford the larger, higher end of technologies, right? So just through the economics of it, the smaller cities and the tier 2, tier 3 towns and tier 4 certainly, with smaller size projects, with lower customer base, a large project in a tier 3 or tier 4 town will have 50 apartments, right? A big builder will be doing 5 such projects, right? For us, one phase is 500 apartments, right? Or 1,000 apartments is a phase, and we're also not amongst the largest developers. So, I think the use of technology, but having said that, like when we did stuff in Goa, and we continue to do development in Goa, which is again a smaller size market compared to Pune. Now we've come in with existing technology. So for us, when we move into a smaller city, if you're a larger developer and you've got the technology, it helps you manage a smaller city much better. So it depends on the developer, it depends on where they're from and what they've done so far in technology. But ultimately, the technology cost has to come from your projects itself. So to go back to looking into a city, to look at demand, certainly, you look at trends which are through social media, you look at trends on, other tools which you use from a technology point of view to figure demand. But at the end of the day, there's nothing like, going there, being on the ground, having a team that actually looks at things, because the investments that this takes is a tremendous amount of investment and capital. So we need to look at not purely technology, but also feet on ground to do a proper assessment of a market. And I dare say, large developers who are moving into geographically going into diverse locations typically tend to look at, and certainly this is what we did when we looked at Goa 15 years ago. We said, is this going to be a place where we're going to do one project and come back, or is this a place where we're going to be for the long term? So, then you have to do an assessment of that nature. Otherwise, to go and set up in a city, create a brand, create your office, put all of that and do one project and come back doesn't, it's not economically viable.
So now the thing that I want to ask is the cost impact, the impact on builders. Because even if you use a prefab technology, whether you use a modular construction or you go for these technologies in home buying or vendors or any kind of process, there is a cost that adds to your operational budget. And this is where most of the builders previously in previous years were not adopting these kind of technologies, even if they existed, because the cost was very different and cost was very high. Now also, even if you use, do you think that there is still a operational cost that is there which adds on, and this actually benefits when it comes to your overall revenue, profit, etc.? Or do you think these technologies will still need to be needs to become more affordable for you, or in general all the builders to adapt to?
So, okay, I think I would like to take this question. Okay, very valid question. And so when I said prior to 2020, so PropTech had already started. So I talked about the Ubi surface. We talked about the VR when the virtual reality gear started coming into picture. I still remember so many ex-IITians, all engineers, they had formed their companies and coming out with various VR models. Okay. And you would be surprised to know, while they were very enthusiastic and wanted to come into the PropTech very aggressively, but there were a lot of, you can say, technological problems in the solutions that they were offering. Okay. My walls were looking curved or at an angle. Okay. And they are already out there in the market. Now, as a developer, okay, I'm the client. Need so many of them. They used to contact us on LinkedIn. So while we want to go for the technology, obviously it helps us to increase efficiency, productivity, and everything. It's all the way useful for all of us, for customers as well as for the developers. But the problem is the right technology being there in the place. So initially, when it was in the evolution stage, starting stage, the cost was, once the technology is completely perfected, believe me, cost is absolutely not an issue. For the simple reason that whatever cost you incur in adopting these technologies, we have got several benefits. So for example, say VR, I am not having any team in Dubai or anywhere else in the country other than Pune, but we are able to get the business from those cities and the countries. Okay. So it's just a, it's add-on business for us, with all our conveniences. Okay. You look at, I may not be making the sample flat. And through VR, I am able to give them experience to the customer. So I am saving several crores and lakhs, and I am just putting such small amount and giving that experience to the customer. Okay, so that's from the home buying point of view. You use any technology, it be it online booking. Vikram and team has developed the tools. Okay, be it online, it's like it's improving completely productivity for all of us. Okay, the whole games are being changing completely. Okay, our business has become highly scalable. Okay, so earlier we were talking about some X business, we are able to talk about 5x or 10x today. Okay, and all because of the use of the technology. So I believe cost is not an issue as long as the technology is perfected. Okay, that's for sure. Another problem in our industry, what is happening with the PropTech proliferation? Somehow all these various tools are being designed in isolation. So as a developer, again, being the client, I feel a lot of issues. So I have been saying to Vikram, at least since last 2 years, develop a tool which will take care of my business from my start to the end. So today I am required to use several tools, softwares and systems. It becomes practically impossible for us to implement those and ensure that those are used consistently by each and every team member. Okay, it's practically difficult. So we need as an industry a tool which will take care of my different, the wasted labor, the site requirement from pre-sales to sales to my possession and then post-possession, how my business is performing. There are so many things out there. And today, I don't think there is any such tool available in the whole market. So we need that integration. We need a lot of investment to come in place. I don't think cost is an issue. It is going to be much more beneficial than the cost it asks for.
So I'm going to give two answers actually. The first answer is specifically for Vikram, and the rest is for the second part of the answer is for the rest of the audience. So my answer to Vikram is yes, absolutely, you must reduce your license costs. It is pinching us, it is onerous, and we are in a lot of burden with the license costs he charges. But being more serious, I completely concur with Sachin. The paybacks on these tools in every single case is several multiples of the investment and the cost. And one has to think about the payback in broader terms than just saying, what is my annual license fee or a one-time development cost, etc. Because like Sachin pointed out, it opens up new revenue streams, it improves conversion ratios, it improves, in the case of construction technology, it improves oversight, reduces safety risks, improves compliances, and many of those things we often miss out when we evaluate the cost benefit of these kinds of tools. So one must think broadly, and we always wrestle with, like Sachin was saying, should we be at the bleeding edge of the technology adoption or the bleeding edge? There are many technologies that are emerging, and we like to support new entrepreneurs who are developing these technologies. So we've recently, for example, launched a 3D holography experience at one of our new project launches in Mumbai. And the technology is not perfect, but it is the first time that consumers are experiencing that. And whenever a customer comes in, they are completely wowed by the experience. As a developer or as a technophile, I would still want more refinement and more functionality in that. But when you look at it from a consumer's point of view, they are wowed. They are able to then, the sudden passion and affinity for the project changes, and that translates into much better conversion ratios.
Yeah. So, Arvind, I think we'll take the cost offline. Definitely work out for you. And so primarily what's happening is it's a catch-22 situation. There is so much money flowing into tech right now, and the salaries have been going out of hand because you're now competing at a global level, right? One of my employees the other day got an offer from Snapchat, right? So basically you're competing with US salary, and primarily the developers are not paying the US license fees, right? So it's a very tricky situation. We are in a much better position because my tech is already built. The people who are trying to build new tech, right? Basically the cost that is required, that has gone up tremendously. So for example, probably we would have invested around $1.5 million into a new CRM, right? If I want to do it today, I cannot build it for less than $6 million. That is how much cost escalation have happened in tech in the last 2 years. And this is all because of COVID. So a second problem in real estate is to find people with crossover in real estate and tech, right? It's always been a very non-sexy industry for tech guys to be in. And fintech and everything was where everybody wanted to be, B2C, e-commerce, very sexy to be in, right? But we've been here for 13 years. The focus now has shifted with, we've acquired recently at our parent company 3 or 4 different PropTech companies, and they are making a commitment to pumping in money into PropTech, which is what was required, which Aurum is doing, because the costs are severely escalating. And the market is big enough, but as Sachin and Arvind said, everybody is siloed right now, right? So a single guy just taking a small market share and trying to get in the market, still sustain the technology cost is not possible. Means he's better off getting into a service business. He'll make 4 times the money and take it home, right? So you are at a flux point where it is going to need a lot of capital and a commitment and knowledge from all the parties. And I think developers also need to be committed to building new technology with entrepreneurs. If they just keep falling back on old ones like SAP and all these, the market's not going to go anywhere, right? Because somebody is building something new. If you're not willing to adopt and you just fall back on an older tech, it's a catch-22 situation. Things are not going to go anywhere. SAP is a platform you still need, and primarily you need to build so much stuff on top of platforms, which vertical industry-based softwares do for years, right? So a platform cannot compete with a vertical-based system, but it also needs to be viable. So I think the adoption also needs to grow faster there, and the support also needs to be there. We are going to make some mistakes, but we are committed as a company and as a parent group long term. So Sachin's given us a challenge. I have taken it. Within 1 year, we'll be rolling out a full-fledged ERP with BIM, with rate analysis, with BOQ, with a project management tool on top of it. And because that's the need of the industry, we were staying away from it because the costs were ridiculous. Now there's somebody supporting and backing it up. So the ecosystem will happen now.
So one thing that one of the panelists said is that there are so many different technologies or softwares or different things that builders has to use, because they have there is a long process that builders goes through from planning to construction to delivery and further. So there are different types of technologies that go through that also requires skilling of people. Because traditionally builders were doing this manually and other things. that also requires scaling, and that requires scaling on a regular basis. And using of this technology is also difficult for builders because they have to use different type of softwares at different type of points.
Yes.
Third part is the cost impact, because all this will increase the operational cost of the builder. So first two is the scaling and the use of different technologies. Second is, do you think that whatever the cost comes up as the operational cost, do you think that is okay when it comes to overall final output and revenue you look at, or do you think that cost increases and that should ideally should come down, only then the adoption will be faster among all builders?
So look, I think the first point around a multitude of technologies, all needing APIs, all needing to speak to each other, it makes no sense to have to enter your customer data into 3 different softwares, right? And your employee data into 4 different softwares. And then, for them to be able to speak, one employee leaves, you got to make 4 changes. So that is clearly a challenge. That challenge is sort of getting resolved on its own over time. And the biggest thing in terms of adopting of technology, I think that's accelerating the adoption of technology is scale. Right? The cost of training, retraining, technology, connections, APIs. Look, I'll give you an example, right? One single robotic process automation to create the process, apart from licensing cost, depending on the complexity, is somewhere between 2 and 3 lakhs of rupees. Right? Now, if you're doing a large number of transactions and the RPA and the process is eliminating, let's say, a person, right? Then you're saving a salary of, let's say, 5 lakhs. It makes the most sense. But if you've got one small project and one bank account, right, and it's taking 15 minutes in a month for somebody to do it, it makes no sense whatsoever. So the single biggest driver I feel is scale, right? Otherwise, for at a basic level, people are using technology. At the end of the day, Microsoft Word and Excel is still technology, right? So people use the cheaper entry-level technology. Zoom is a technology, right? So people are using that. And then I think when you have scale, then you can afford to say, okay, let me get an ERP, let me get my tech team in place, let me get the tech team to integrate with the different other things which are going on. The best item for the best tool for sales is Salesforce, but your Salesforce doesn't do the enterprise side. You need to get a separate integration partner to get Salesforce to talk to SAP, right? Any integration partner you go to wants 20 lakhs, 30 lakhs, 40 lakhs, depending on complexities. So if you don't have the scale to be able to afford this, right, then that automatically precludes people from being able to do this. And this is also part of the reason why the larger developers are able to get better, offer better customer service, able to deliver better, because they've got the scale to amortize that cost of technology over a larger base of projects. And therefore, the gap between the larger and the smaller, in terms of customer service, in terms of delivery, in terms of the efficiencies is changing on that basis as well.
The society management is where builders have to do it for 5 years, right? So, and society management requires guards, maids, etc., all those things. And so is this something that you have found it useful, that many companies have come up with cloud computing, etc.? So is this something that builders are finding it useful, especially that it is mandatory for builders to do so?
That's an interesting area, which honestly we don't have first-hand experience in yet. We are still kind of getting our arms around it. But as you said, as per RERA, we have defect liability for a longer period now. And also, beyond just the obligation from RERA, there is, I think, significant value in staying in touch with the customer through the property management service. So historically, the developer model used to be, as soon as the project is ready, hand it over as quickly as possible and wahan se nikal ke agle project karo. I think we are now realizing that staying in touch with the customer, understanding how the product is getting used, gives you a lot of insight for the next product you're building, but also engenders loyalty because you are committed to ensuring the customer. There's always going to be teething troubles at the time of first occupancy and moving in. If you are there to back that and support the customer through that process, it drives a lot of brand benefits and loyalty.
So my sense is most of the apps, all the society management apps, are run by the society, right? And then once the society is formed, the society is very reluctant to have their data go to a developer, right? So that data resides on that app. and they use it very efficiently. But the reverse use of the flow of data going back to the developer doesn't generally end up happening, because consumers don't want their data to just be flying around randomly all over the place. People are very, very protective about their data, as they should be. So, to my knowledge, those apps and those guys who are doing the society management softwares and technologies are not sharing the data back with the developers. And I think that's the right way to do it.
So Sachin, same thing. One, this is the society management that builders are required to do. Second is also the aspect that they also require this building safety, structural safety, etc., because of what has happened recently in different cities, not just one. So this is something that builders actually require to take care of and after they build the building also. So is there something that builders are looking at? Why is it that builders are not actually adopting these kind of technologies as much as they should?
See, first of all, the way I said, we always welcome those kind of technology which are going to help us in doing our business. Okay, and so the way Arvind said, we haven't come across at such a solution as of now available in the market, which is again perfect. Whether it comes to society management, there are some tools available for society management. It's just that we are trying here and there and checking them out. When it comes to safety and everything, nowadays what we have started doing, because there is no technology directly available with us, we have started roping in a third party, okay, who are experts in evaluating whether whatever we are delivering to the customers as a project, whether all those meeting all the safety norms and the condition under which that project was supposed to be constructed. Okay, so one is on paper, one is in reality. So what we are trying to do is, by incorporating a third-party agency, we're trying to see whatever we have planned and sanctioned and whatever we actually deliver at the site is exactly as per the requirement and is going to be safe for the customer and for us as a developer. And I think they are using, what I understand from them, they are using some technology where they are able to provide us all online reports, where we will be able to see exactly what is right and what is wrong and which field. Okay, and there will be analysis available for us. Okay, so how it is going to be, like whether there are any quality defects in services, whether it's fire, whether it's plumbing, okay, any kind of service for that matter, even inside the flats and the lobbies. Okay, so I believe they are using some technologies as of now, and through which they are submitting us the reports and the analysis. Directly as of now, we have not used anything, and neither anybody has approached us directly. So yes, that is where I see a bit of an issue.
Vikram, if you can.
Yeah, so society management, I think the systems are still evolving. What we have is security systems primarily, and some basically when it comes to safety, water management, building management system, lift security and maintenance, and every maintenance aspect of the society. I think IoT has got to come a long way. There are a lot of companies who are tackling these problems. So I think integrated services with IoT, creating a holistic building management system is probably a year and a half away to see. And once it kicks in, I think it is going to be a huge thing, because I can manage everything on an app. The society can see if there is a fire, if there is even, I'm working with an interesting water management company who is looking at the quality of water that you are getting. Basically how much water you are consuming, and can we go to billing at a certain water if you consume water around us above a certain level. Similarly with waste management, there are a lot of holistic systems are not available, as Sachin said. They will evolve. Right now, at best, what we have is a MyGate kind of a thing, which is just a security system integrated with services. But it's got to go a long way to get a real system.
Because this Chintal Paradiso, there is a project in Gurgaon that one of the tower collapsed, right?
Yes.
And then this is not one example. There has been several across countries. There have been Shaberi, Chennai, Pune, Navi Mumbai, etc. There have been fire incidents. There have been building collapses, etc. Now there are technologies like modular construction, prefab technologies. There are a lot of technologies that can make sure that the buildings are very strong in general. And buildings' life are supposed to be at least 30-40 years. Now, why is it that builders are not adopting this kind of technology? Because their companies at stake, their reputation is at stake. So why is it that the builders are not adopting these kind of technologies, new construction technologies that are coming up, and why is it that these kind of incidents still are happening, even though they are less, but still they are happening a lot across country? It's not just one-off incident. So do you think that this kind of technology? Please.
So let me first put it in a slightly different perspective, right? No life lost, no damage to property because of poor construction should be acceptable at all, right? So that's the first sort of overarching sort of comment on that. The current Indian standard codes of construction using the older methodologies and systems, right, are very safe and sound for a building to last more than 50 years. Okay, we've built buildings which are still standing 40 years ago, 50 years ago. So that is not to say that the old or the conventional construction technology is in any way weaker or riskier than what the prefab and other things are today. If somebody is using shoddy method, right? If somebody is taking shortcuts, then whether he uses prefab or whether he uses old construction or whether he uses, load-bearing construction, the disaster is going to happen. So the solution doesn't come from the technology that's used, right? The solution comes from the systems, the processes, the type of materials that are being used, our kind of audit that we put into place. And, I wish consumers and customers would actually come and ask developers and say, look, what is your construction quality audit system? Consumers don't ask this, right? So therefore, we are left in a situation, but I will certainly say this, not one damage to structure or risk to life is acceptable. If you look at the hundreds and thousands of buildings which are being built and have been built in this country over the last, decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, the number of incidents and accidents of this sort that have taken place from a percentage point of view are very, very few. They should be zero, but I don't think we've got like a massive sort of overall massive problem. It's something that needs to be addressed, right? And I think the regulators, I think our Indian standard codes have been very, very sound and very strong. And which is why we have the few where these are black sheep. Every industry, you may put any kind of system in place, but there'll still be an accident in a factory. There'll still be a fire in a factory. You may make any kind of a car with all kinds of systems, right? But it still might catch fire somewhere. And often enough, for example, you can have a short circuit in your car because a rat chewed up the wires, right? You can have a structural element in a building failing because some interior designer came along and while he's moving the wall, broke a column. So it's not just that the construction technology deployed is incorrect. It's an entire ecosystem that we need to have a little bit of better vigilance on, I feel.
I think I will have to take a good amount of time to explain this to you. Okay, so first of all, I said that when there are so many technologies available, why is it that there are so many incidences happening in so many projects, much before the life of the building is supposed to be? First of all, our industry is, I must say, it's very tricky, it's very risky, it's not so easy the way I say the manufacturing. For example, you are manufacturing this laptop or a mobile and any car, you have got the automated machines and everything will happen and the quality system is set. Okay, you input something and output comes out. That is not the case with the real estate industry. Okay, whatever technology comes in place, whether you got a My1 technology or tunnel form technology, finally you need those people to use it. Okay, and again, for us, the manufacturing setup is like those many sites available. Okay, and we have got multiple sites. The bigger the developer you are, you have got those many sites, and again, you have the presence in different cities, all the more difficult. And then you have got teams to take care of it. It's unlike any manufacturing setup where you can have all the controls in place and ensure the output. Okay, in our industry, it's highly difficult. That's why on plan, on paper, everything can be perfect. There is all the probability that in reality there could be something going wrong, and that's the reason you are finding those kind of incidences. Let's look at the fire, or let's look at anything. So you cannot get the approval of the project unless everything is designed as per the standards. So, so there are construction code of conduct and everything is there. So you cannot get approvals before that. It's just that somebody, labor or the engineer, has not done his duties properly at the site. Okay, and and then suddenly later on, either customers and the developers and the authorities, they get a shock or surprise. Okay, so yes, there are a lot of you can say manual interventions are required in our industry, and that is where we are facing those problems. There is another issue. There is a behavioral issue, attitudinal issue. Okay, chalta hai kind of attitude, unfortunately in India, not just in our industry. Okay, is practically rampant out there. Okay, one has to understand that whatever business we are into, real estate is highly serious. It's all leads to not only the luxury and the lavishness of the life, but the basic safety of the life is also equally important. How, as a company, we explain it and drill down, okay, to the core of every individual who are working in our industry or a company, okay, that whatever you do, please do not compromise with the quality and the safety. Whether it's plumbing, whether it's electricity, whether it's RCC or finishing, whatever it is. Okay, that's an attempt from every industry. I'm sure every good brand, every good company is trying to do that, but finally it's manual. Okay, and that is where we are facing those accidents and incidences, and which is obviously it's bringing that, you can say, negative filler towards the industry. Okay, let me address the other part of it. Why technology is being not adopted? So while yes, the aluform, the My1, the tunnel farm, everything is being adopted rapidly. So practically all those new development buildings are being constructed by using all these technologies. So tunnel farm and the aluform, you can say at least 80% plus kind of projects are being constructed this way, at least all high-rise buildings. So yes, in terms of that, there is a good amount of adoption of the technology. However, what you said is prefab, particularly, already the modulated, already manufactured somewhere in the factory and then directly put it in the site. We actually find a lot of issues in that also. You can use that as long as you have got very, very, very standardized kind of a product with multiple reputations. Okay, that's certainly possible. But otherwise, nowadays market is so dynamic and consumer requirements are changing so fast, and there is so much of competition. It's practically very difficult for us to go so much of standardization. It puts us into the risk of business, and that is where we like to keep the flexibility for us. And when we try to keep the flexibility for us, okay, directly committing for such technologies become risky for us. And that is where we try to be in between, where we are trying to adopt the technology. At the same time, we should try to get the flexibility and reduce the risk of the business. That's the stage we are.
Vikram, to you, I want to ask about this virtual reality, virtual headsets that are there, virtual house that are there, project tools that builders require, all those things. 3D house, IIT Madras came up with 3D house. This has been there in China and Europe and US a lot, and it has been used not on a large scale, but it is starting being used. And then there is this metaverse that Facebook and other companies are now coming up. Cryptocurrency also there. I get mails that we are selling land on metaverse, etc. So is this kind of new things that are coming up? What is your take of in 2, 3, 4 years down the line? Do you think this kind of things may catch up in India as well, with builders, with you or other stakeholders that are there? And do you think these are actually useful eventually? Because this is the end user market. This is not an investor market, or this is not a product that can be thrown away in 3, 4 years. So do you think this kind of technologies are helpful or have a future in going forward?
Yeah. So there is a rapid change in basically you can create reality anywhere, right? That is what metaverse and VR is basically doing to you. The headsets are still evolving. I think they'll get there in 1 or 2 years, but the tech is definitely going to stay here. Next property selection that you will be able to do is probably get online, walk through the property, talk to a consultant, a virtual walkthrough with the consultant, or the developer directly collaborating with you so the next gen portals will be basically built on metaverse. It's going to take 3 to 4 years to get there. Current problem to solve obviously is about data and transparency for the consumer, right? And selecting the right property from the wrong, because giving the means it's very very amazing to understand how emotional a home buying decision is, right? How much ever data you show to people, end of the day, when it comes to buying a home, people will throw all that away, and whatever is being liked at that point. And if you got a great sales guy selling you a property and the presentation is good, they'll go and buy that. So that's how emotional India is compared to US or any other country. So technologies obviously will start making an impact. So there is always going to be a class of buyer which is going to look at data and take the decision and want to be very careful. But currently the majority is primarily looking at the emotional buying aspect. So dikhta hai wo bikhta hai, right? That's the thing people are going at right now. So it's a behavior change. So it's going to take a little bit of time. Once people get used to all these things and get used to consuming data, which they are not used to right now because it was never available, right? IGR has just gotten available. So you can actually know kitne pe bik raha hai property and what is you've been quoted. So I think we are entering a realm of fixed pricing in the next 1 year, which is great. So technology is going to have a lot of good impact from a transparency standpoint. From a data standpoint, metaverse will become a reality in 3 years. And 3D printing will evolve, but we go vertical here. So 3D printing is not going to impact that, but second tier cities and rural areas, it's going to have a massive impact because you can pretty much build a house in 3 lakh, 4 lakh rupees, a 2-bedroom house. So that's definitely going to pick up and the government should invest more in that.
Sachin and Vikram both, if you have to bet on one thing that you are going to bet on this year, whether it is for your own company or in industry as well, in general, what is the one thing that you're betting on for when it comes to technology or when it comes to in general business?
So for us, it becomes the virtual reality. That is something very important, and we are going all out to use it across all projects and to scale up our business further, to reach new target segments across not only in the country but outside the country. Okay, so that's something a major thing for us to increase our reach. It's all about distribution. It's all about reach to increase business. And yes, this year is going to be major use of the virtual reality for us.
Vikram?
Yeah, so consumer side, we do build a lot of things, but as I said, the highest impact is going to be coming from blockchain and partial ownership, right? If the adoption grows, it means a lot of different avenues opening up for real estate. And if you are able to trade real estate as stock on the back end, it's a game changer. So my bet is on that for this year. So let's see how it evolves, how policies support that and all these things. But it's a huge change that's happening right now.
Great. Thank you, Sachin and Vikram. Thank you for being here.